Welcome back to Weekend Walkabout. This is Jana Makanovich and Stephen Nicola with GardenAtoZ.org. This is a 5-part series that we call Planted Well, Even When the Roots Are Wrong. If you wonder who we are, then you should go back and listen to the introductory chapter, because this is chapter 1 that has to do with how roots grow. Please do keep in mind as you listen to this that this is copyrighted material. Our lifeblood has gone into it and many, many years of experience in gathering data and photographs for you. So if you're going to use it for other than your personal use, please let us know. You can contact us at our website. Thank you very much and enjoy the show.
Chapter 1, How Roots Grow.
You may have downloaded, or you can download this handout, this material, which is the outline that we'll follow today. It keeps us on track to have this, and we'll show you as we go along where we are on it. Our apologies to those who were really on the ball and maybe downloaded it right away when you got your invitation, because about 2 hours after we sent the invitation, we realized that we'd not put out the most recent one, which looks like this. So if you have one that looks a little different, you'll be able to download this correct one later on.
And our aim is to promote discussion. We hope that we can make a difference. Once an exception, bad root balls are not common. Life expectancy of trees and shrubs and even perennials is down. It's going down.
And we're the people who are using these things. We need to see what's going on and what we're doing, and that's what we're doing. So we are not saying that we're the end-all and be-all. We want to promote discussion. We want to show you what we've seen in this place. And we need to start with finding some common ground. So we're at the top of our outline. We don't plant a tree or a bush.
We plant the roots.
That's what we're planting. And we want to start with,
what do you know about what a good root system looks like?
And it's just looking for common ground. So consider this twig and this twig that I've put some pieces of yarn onto. How would that yarn arrange itself if it was the roots of a young tree? Would you put it like this, where they go down and then out? Or would you put it like this?
Where they go out.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's look at what a good root system actually looks like, starting with the fact that roots grow out much more than down. They grow radial. They grow like spokes. So let's look at 2 very young trees, red buds. They're both first-year trees, one that's just germinated and one that's been growing for most of the summer. And you can see that the new one, the young one, has little tiny roots starting, and those roots become roots that grow out to the side. And they grow much more quickly than the roots that grow down. See how they're expanding faster than what's going down.
That's a wonderful root system.
This is called an Atlantic leatherwood. It's one of our native shrubs. And at a client's house, she was moving and wanted to take it with her. I said, well, we can do that. It's only been in the ground for 3 or 4 years. This is not a spread out root system. We didn't press down on the trunk and flatten it. This is the root system. This is how it grew.
Wants to grow. That's a parodia that we moved out from that courtyard area. And that's its root system. That's how it wanted to go. This root system we took out, these roots that are going down did not grow. They were forced down. They did not grow down. The cage was still there and they were forced down. The roots that escaped and got out,
look how they've gone horizontal
and how much farther they went.
And this is a Japanese maple, to the question that we had earlier about a Japanese maple with girdling roots. If one of those roots is wrapped around the trunk, then it's going to stop the growth and kill the plant. You have to take it out. We'll get to those later. But root systems are going to go out much more than down, and they grow a lot wider than the branches.
And this is
my books. Remember? I think I was taking from the books. Yes. You told us to stop talking over each other. We tried to divvy up the images here. In the 90s, when Steve and I were first becoming quite concerned about what was going on with the trees and shrubs that were being planted, we discovered the books, The Landscape Below Ground, which were the proceedings from symposiums about tree root development. And they were eye-openers to how many other people were seeing these problems. And then Gary Watson, who wrote Planting Trees and Shrubs, he's at the Morton Arboretum, or associated with the Morton Arboretum in Illinois, wrote about this in his book. So we looked at those, and also at what groundbreaking, just totally revolutionizing plant botany Alex Shigo did, and corresponded with him about it, and Klaus Maddock, who's taken up from there. We looked to see how these roots grow and what we can do about them. Met James Urban, whose new textbook has extensive information about this problem. But a lot of this is not being heard. Now, this picture is taken from a book that's not yet been, from a book called Understanding Roots by Robert Couric, but the work is from a book that hasn't been translated into English yet. It's still in the German. And what's happening is people are looking at real root systems. So this is an actual 18-foot pine tree that they trenched all along next to the tree, across the trunk and to the far side, and mapped the root system. And if you look at how much further those roots go than the branches, I think that you will throw right out the window that whole thing that says that the roots grow to the drip line. And the depth of the roots, the deepest those roots are is 36 inches. And out further, they're 12 inches deep. So it's an incredibly wide, shallow root system. And it's even for what we call the deep-rooted trees. Here's a
oak that's noted for having deep roots and possible taproot.
And its depth, the deepest extent of root that it has is 44 inches. And we know this on our own go ahead, Steve.
This was our ginkgo that we had to move. We promised we would be careful, and Janet was digging. She dug all the way around.
I usually start at the drip line when I'm moving a plant and dig around looking for where are the roots. And I dug all the way around.
And she still hadn't found anything. We were concerned where are the roots
of this ginkgo?
Because finally she found one, and we followed it out
all the way to the end, trenched it out all the way to the end. All the way to
where it ended. And then that's the root compared to the bark. They do look similar. Learn your roots. And after, this is that root that we went all the way out.
We've just wrapped it around so that we can move it.
And we found the rest of the roots.
Well, we cut the rest of the roots. We're not about to move a root system that's
extensively out.
We just went around the outside edge and cut the roots. Now we knew what depth they were running, because they were running deeper than we expected. And we've learned that ginkgos do that. They go down like a linebacker's shoulders and then level out at about 20 inches if the soil is good. But what was very interesting about that root that we traced all the way to the end,
it was just as long as where the drip line was.
As the longest branch was. Yeah.
It was amazing. So we lifted it out,
set it behind
and replanted it.
10 years later,
there it is.
Still there.
There it is.
Very important part of the yard.
The original plant was this part, and then we got a sport that came up and we let it go. Yeah. It was cool.
Okay, so woody plants roots grow out more than down. They grow a lot wider than the branches, and there are 4 to 11 what are called flare roots, or first order roots, or sometimes called primary roots. There are 4 to 11 on a plant that develop differently than others do. They grow radially out, and those flare roots are roots that get thicker near the trunk much quicker than any other root. They're important roots, and they're not going to develop other than when the plant first develops. This is a 7-son tree that we moved.
It was moved by 12 people, average age of 62 years old, at the Detroit Zoo.
And that average age included Alec over there.
And Carrie.
So we root
hand dug it.
Well, we root pruned it in the springtime, and this is August that we're moving it. So we root pruned it in order to give the plant a chance to grow some new roots within the area that we're going to be moving it. And then we dug under it.
And lifted it up.
Rinsed off the rest of the soil, moved it out. Here it is 5 years later on the right. 2 years later, 2 years after move on the left, it had a little bit of dieback on it as it readjusted, but it's doing just fine now.
Yep. Flare roots sticking near the trunk, and they get bigger.
You can see
and they're buttress roots. They're support too. The main feeding goes right up through them.
You look at the side roots that are coming off of those flare roots. I see 4 flare roots there, 1, 2, 3, 4, all getting thicker near the trunk. But the side roots that are coming off of them are uniform in their diameter all the way across. Only the flare roots thicken quickly near the trunk and become that.
When you walk in the woods, you don't see without flares. You don't see trees without flares.
So the plant stands up on that buttress of flare roots. Those bases plus the weight of all the soil on that huge root system hold them down like a tether on a tent holds it down. So you look at what's holding that tree on the hill is the weight of all that soil holding it down. So that's where we've just been, is what the root system looks like. And you might have to just give it to us for now based on those pictures or take a look in those books, but that's the way they are. Now we need to look at how production of root systems has changed.
Back when the trees and shrubs were grown in the field, they were sold bare root. The bare root, those trees are, and there's the people that are going to plant them, and that's how they were planted, bare root.
By people in suits and
hats.
Yeah, I think that was required.
Shovels. They were planted and stayed put. They mounded the soil, put the roots over, set it, backfilled it, and watered it in, and kept it watered.
And then they just stayed there. Or the nursery lined them out, in other words, planted them like that, and then root pruned them regularly, went along the edge and root pruned like we did that Seven Sun plant, and eventually they put them into a ball and burlap. So they pruned them to keep the roots closer to the trunk.
It would be denser in this area.
Well, it is denser. They went down that row between the trees over there and caused all of that side root growth. But then when they balled and burlap, they still didn't get all of the roots. Often roots, plants that were dug from the field, lose about 90% of their roots.
So they're going to go into some transplant shock.
That's called B&B, or balled and burlap. This is from James Urban's book explaining how that happens. But root pruning is what was done in order to make sure that roots kept growing new ends, because when a root is cut, it does branch, and if the growing conditions are good, root growth is really fast.
It branches. It can branch very fast. There's that Seven Sun shrub.
We root pruned it in April, and this is in August. All of that new root from a big, thick root like that. This is a Norway spruce. We pruned it one spring, and we looked at it the next spring and said, God darn, we were trying to keep it out of the magnolias bed. And it just said, oh, good, now I can put 8 roots into that bed. Eventually, as it branches like that, if it's a flare root, one of those roots will take off more than the other and become the extension of the flare root.
And that's a potted plant in 12 days, a catalpa.
12 days of
that's
root.
Its root when allowed to go.
So roots grow very quickly. Are there questions now about roots and about planting? You can type them into chat, or you can raise your hand, because this is the end of chapter 1.
Got one from Barbara right away. She is asking, is improper planting sometimes the cause of trees being knocked down in storms?
Yes, improper planting and actually improper growing. Sometimes we plant them the best that we think we could, but they were grown improperly so that the roots will not form a buttress and will not spread out. And very often, very, very often, the tree topples later on when it becomes heavy because it doesn't have the root system it should have. Yeah, it's entirely right. You may be able to scroll the chat up a bit. Pine tree roots are growing out of the lawn. Should we add dirt and lawn seed to cover them? You can cover roots, but thinking about how roots grow, what you see when a root looks like it is coming up out of the lawn is you're seeing a root growing in diameter. It's gotten older. It started out as a small root the size of my finger, and then it's added bulk, so now it's as big around as a sausage. And because it's gotten bigger around, you're seeing the top of it raise up, just like you're seeing the bottom go down. If the roots are that close to the surface that you're seeing them as they increase in diameter, then what happened was that tree grew out into the only loose aerated soil it could grow, which was probably just the topsoil under your sod. And you needed, when the tree was growing younger, to loosen the soil ahead of it so that it could grow lower. So if you've got them up near the surface, you can put soil over them, not against the trunk, but you can put soil over those roots. But you have to understand that they're going to keep increasing in diameter, and you may have to keep doing that over a period of time.
Do willow tree roots grow the same?
Willow tree roots grow just the same as the rest. They grow faster. Now, fast, we showed you in 12 days what a catalpa grows. Do you know that your roots, because they're growing in kind of one plane, your branches are growing all everywhere. Your branches may be growing 12 inches a year, and the same root on that same tree, a root may be growing 36 inches a year. And a willow tree, which grows 36 inches on a branch, might be growing 6 feet of new root every year. I have 3 oaks and a hickory in my backyard on a slant. I don't need to worry about the soil that has slid down and exposed some flared roots. No, you don't. The flared roots are the buttress. They're stiff and providing width. They don't need to be covered with soil. It's the root ends that are anchoring that tree onto the hill. I have a 60-year-old ginkgo and suspect the dirt is above the flare. Should I dig out around it? Yes.
Yeah, set it free if you can.
Whenever you can help a tree. You may not save the tree. In other words, a ginkgo can live 1,000 years. We know that there are some that are 1,100 years old. Yours may not make it to 1,000 years because it's been abused if it's planted deep. But you may buy it some time, more time than it would have buried deep. Will I hurt the shrub or tree if I remove some of the roots that are too close to the surface? We can't ever say for sure which roots you take out will hurt and which don't, but there are a lot of roots, and taking some of them out if they are misplaced or damaging the plant is really the only thing that you can do.
Sometimes the soil is so compacted the roots just stay near the surface, and sometimes they are the adventitious roots.
That's right. If you've only got those roots growing, then you are definitely taking some roots off. Keep in mind that you can take a lot of roots off of a tree when you transplant it, like we did cutting the ends off of all those ginkgo roots, and they grow back again. But if the roots are near the surface because it's compacted, you can take off some roots, but you need to loosen that soil so that the new roots will grow deeper. The roots of my daughter's birch tree, about 25 feet from her house, are upending the patio stones. The tree is as high as the house. What to do? Upending the patio stones means that the roots are increasing in diameter, and by hydraulic action, they're lifting the patio stones. You can lift the whole patio, which we've done in building patios above trees' roots. You can cut some roots out. You can put in less thick rock on top of it, but the root is probably going to continue to change its roots are going to continue to grow in diameter, so that's going to be a continual alteration you'll have to make.
We've got a question from Stacy. What should you do to reposition a blue spruce which has blown out of position? Tree was professionally planted about 6 years ago. This tree will routinely get the winds.
And spruces and other evergreens tend to put up a lot of resistance to the wind and do get knocked over, particularly if they don't have a good root system. So you can prop the tree, put the tree back to the straightness that it should be, and put a crutch around the trunk. You're putting something around the trunk. We'll show you pictures of this later. To hold it in position. To hold it in position. But probably if the tree is shifting over and it's been in 6 years, it's not grown roots out of the ball. You probably would benefit yourself and that tree by digging around the ball and checking to see what the right level is and get the roots.
The cage might still be on there.
I think we're going to save these questions now and keep going, because a lot of these are going to be answered as we go along here. We missed some of Steve's beautiful pictures here.
Talking to a tree ant.
Yeah. To continue with this presentation, go to Chapter 2, Why Nurseries Grow Poor Roots. Thank you.